Today we're going to be learning how to draw the human face. On this side of your worksheet you have your facial proportions. This is just a guide for you. On the other side we're actually going to start using this as a template to trace. So you have a sheet of paper that I just handed out to you. You have your worksheet. I'd also recommend having a 6B and a 4H and maybe an eraser and your HB pencil, so we kind of have some different values that we can work with. So I'm going to start by taking my worksheet and I'm going to stick it right underneath my sketchbook paper here, or my drawing paper. And what I'm doing here is I don't have to get it perfect, and I actually kind of prefer you don't perfectly trace this. What you're doing is you're just getting kind of the general idea of the shape of that head. If you want it to be more masculine, you can kind of follow along with the structure of that face. Okay? But if you want it more feminine, you might change it just slightly, maybe make it a little thinner, okay, less square-like. Okay? So I'm just using sketch lines here just to kind of draw an egg shape, upside down egg shape for the head. Okay? Then I'm going to add some necklines. Okay? I'm going to make mine a little bit skinnier. Okay? The lines on the sheet of paper are a little bit thicker. That would be more for, again, like a male that works out a lot. Okay? I'm going to make mine a little bit more feminine by just moving the lines in a little bit. Okay. Now that I have that part done, I don't need to trace this bottom worksheet anymore, so I can pull it out and I can just move it off to the side here so that I can kind of use it to copy and follow along with. So the first thing that we're going to start doing is breaking the head up into simple sections. Okay. So in order to do this, we're going to break it up down the middle, from side to side essentially. So we go and we draw a vertical line to give us a left side and right side of the head. Then we're going to break it in half from top to bottom. Okay. And this is actually going to represent our eye line. So I want you to be drawing fairly lightly with this. I'm using my HB pencil because I can draw lightly with my HB pencil. If you want to use your 4H to do this, you can do that too if you press really hard. Okay. So I now have 4 quadrants of my head, okay? The first thing that we're going to put in is actually going to be our eyes. So this halfway mark is actually where your eyes sit. I know a lot of students like to put the eyes up here in the forehead, and your eyes actually are halfway between the top and the bottom part of your head. So I'm going to mark this as the eye line, okay? So I'm going to add that little label over here. And our eyes, okay, actually, if we take our little measuring tool, okay, our little pointer finger and our thumb, and if you put it just right at your pointer finger in your, in your tear duct, and your thumb, okay, on the back side of your eye, and you measure it, lock it into place, and then now shift it between your 2 eyes, you'll notice that it's the same amount of space. So you have kind of this hidden eyeball between your 2, but then you also have an eyeball width on the outside of your head. I know your head is round, so it feels like it should be longer, okay? But really it's only an extra eyeball width on the sides as well. So if you kind of add those up, you've got 1, starting on the right-hand side, you've got your eyeball, that's 2, 3 is in the middle, 4 is off to the left, and then you've got the last one, okay, on the far left. So you have 5 eyeball widths wide. So in order to draw that, I'm gonna kind of just guesstimate what I think an eyeball width is from this center piece. Okay, so I'm going to just go scoot in here a little bit so you guys can see. Okay, that's kind of my guesstimate of what I think an eyeball width is going to be. Okay, and now here's what I like to do. I know it's got to be 5s, so I'm going to take this length here and I'm just going to cut it in half. Okay, so I took this tick mark all the way to the edge of the face and I cut it in half. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay. And then I'm just looking to see, does it feel like 5 eyeball widths wide if I could erase out this line? You guys don't have to do this, okay? But that would represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they should be fairly equal, okay? I'm gonna put this line kind of just back in here so I have it. So now I'm gonna take and start drawing my eyes. Okay, we're doing a very general human being today. Some of you have skinnier eyes, some of you have more almond rounded shaped eyes. So I'm gonna just kind of keep mine as like a basic football almond shape. So I'm gonna start right here on my right hand side. I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna kind of tuck it back down into the corner over here. Again, if you go a little bit outside your tick mark, it's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna make a little arch. And now we're no longer drawing footballs for eyes. Okay? You actually have, if you want to look at your neighbor, they have a little tear duct, which is kind of like a little scoop on the front of the eyeball. So it's kind of like a hooked in little C there. And then your lower lid actually isn't as curvy, so it's just going to gently curve down and then curve back up into that back part of the top lid. Okay. That's how you would draw an eyeball. Okay. Then we're just going to do the same thing on the left-hand side. So I'm going to start, if it works for you, I have to actually start on the back side of the eye when I do my left side. Okay. It's okay if they're not perfectly the same. You want to try and get them as similar as possible. Okay. Make your little tear duct, which is the little C. And then add in that lower lid, which is just curved only a little bit more. Okay, so that's the start of our eyes. Okay. We have what are called eyelids, right? They cover our eyes. Okay, so to draw the eyelid line, we're just going to repeat and almost kind of copy and paste this top part of our eyeball just up a little bit higher. Okay, so it starts kind of right above your tear duct and ends right above the back side of the eyeball. Okay. The higher up you put it, okay, the bigger we kind of suggest the eyeball. Okay. The closer you put it, the more we would think of like hooded eyes. Okay, but make sure you give yourself enough space because we're going to put some eyelashes in there eventually. Now let's talk about the pupil and the iris. Okay? So we're going to give our human just a little bit of some life. So for the pupil and the iris, your pupil and iris are actually perfect circles inside, because if I were to draw this actual eyeball in here, and you guys don't have to draw this, it's actually going all the way through here, okay, as a circle. So if I could like pop my eye out, it'd be a sphere, right? Okay, and then I'd have a perfect circle, okay, to represent the colored part and the dark part, okay, where all the light goes into. So when I go to draw this section, okay, for some of you, if your eyes are closed a bit more, you're going to actually have this section go all the way down to touch the bottom lid. But for me, I'm actually going to leave a space. Okay? It just depends on how wide you have your eyes open or how closed down that they are. Okay? I'm going to leave a little space in mine. Trying to get it as perfect of a circle as I possibly can. So I'm not going to leave too much room. Don't leave too much room. If you look at your partner or neighbor's eyes, you'll see that a lot of you, when I look out here, your iris actually touches the bottom part of the lid. So kind of keep that in mind as you're looking. So now for the pupil, I'm just going to draw in my circle. Notice I go around a few times. Okay, that helps me get a more accurate circle. Okay. And then here's a common mistake that students do. They just fill in the pupil and then suddenly their eyes look dead. Okay. So we have little shine spots on our eyes that give us life because that's the light reflecting on our eyes. So for me, I'm just going to put mine off to the right hand side here. I'm going to scooch in so you guys can really see. Okay. So I'm just kind of leaving a little sliver, okay, that I'm not going to shade in. And I'm going to shade in the rest of it. So there's that. I'm going to do the same thing kind of on the other side. They don't have to be the same shape, but similar is good. We also have a shine spot on the colored part of our eye too. So I'm going to kind of make mine into this weird, if I could draw it off to the side here, it's almost like a curvy triangle. Okay, something like that. And I'm going to put mine off to the right hand side. Okay, kind of underneath on the left side there. Okay. And now, this is kind of the fun part that I think of for your iris. You actually, if we were to zoom in on the eyeball, okay, it looks really hairy and kind of gross, like almost like muscle strands being pulled apart. So in order to get that concept or to get that idea down, I want you guys to watch first. You're gonna almost kind of make, I think of them like zebra stripes. Okay? It's a radial pattern, okay? Just lines coming out. I gotta be careful around my highlight here because I don't wanna go through it. Okay? So it's kind of going back and forth, okay? Making these little starburst lines. Okay? Keep watching. And then what we're gonna do is we're actually going to just add a little bit of shading right near the top here. And why we do that is it gives the impression that this top lid creates a shadow on our eye. Okay, now you guys can go ahead and do that. If you want your eyes to look lighter, you can add less lines. If you want it to look darker, you can add more lines, right? Okay. I'm gonna start on my left eye here. So you're just kind of working in a starburst or radial lines. Okay, and up kind of near the top, just add that little bit of shading. That'll give the impression that your top lid is creating a shadow. Okay, now we're going to talk about eyelashes. I love eyelashes, but I always kind of giggle when I look at students' eyelashes the first time, because a lot of the time, okay, when I'm looking at this one, this is actually an accurate example, but a lot of the time when I look at students' eyeballs, okay, if I were to draw one just right off to the side here, okay, we got something like this, and then all of a sudden we have this going on, okay? That's not accurate, right? You'd have to have someone that's really wide awake or a lot of like mascara on to get them to stick straight up, right? So instead of this, okay, what we're going to be drawing is more like, I think of it almost kind of like a Nike swoosh. Okay? You're gonna go down first because what this tells us is that it's coming out away from your face, and then you're going to flick up, okay? And it's just kind of these overlapping little flicks. Okay, and then they kind of change direction. So when they start going kind of straight out at us, they're kind of changing the direction just a little bit to go the other way. Okay, and then you want to think about the longest part of your lashes is actually right about in this section. Okay, so those are where the longest ones should be. Okay, and I see it all the time. People generally try and make like these ones out here the longest. Okay, if that's the case, that person's wearing false eyelashes. Okay. So that's not actually accurate, okay? So let's go ahead. If you need to practice it a couple times off to the side of your paper, I'm okay with that. But I'm gonna get started on the right one first. So I like to kind of just start right at the top. That way I can start getting some of those natural flicks in first. Okay, kind of work towards the back of the eye, works good for me. And then now right here at the top, it's almost like going straight up and down with my lines. And then now start curving to the left. And you don't have very many near your tear duct. Okay? You have some, but there's not a whole lot of them. Okay? Then we've got our left eye. Okay? And again, I just like to start at the top. I feel like getting those first couple lengths down is best. Okay? And then kind of getting them out towards the corner of the eye. And start flicking kind of straight up and then curving them out towards the middle part of the eye or the tear duct. Okay. Eyelashes are messy. They don't perfectly go in a straight, like this the eyelash is here, this eyelash is here, this eyelash is here. Okay. They kind of crisscross each other a little bit. Okay. Now for the bottom eyelashes, you may notice looking at your partner that like the eyelashes actually aren't directly connected to the eyeball. You have a little bit of an eyelid showing. So when we go to draw these ones, we're actually going to draw them a little bit spaced off of the eye. Okay? And that represents just kind of that fatty little part of the lid. Any of the ladies in here, if you guys wear makeup, okay, that's generally where you would put that eyeliner, right? It's kind of on that fatty little bottom part of the lid. Okay, so we wouldn't necessarily have our eyelashes touching the top part or that line of our eyeball. Okay? You also don't need very many of them. Okay, so you kind of just scoop them in there. Again, they're curved lines. Okay, so don't make them straight. You don't need to put a whole lot of them. Okay, so we've covered our eyes. Okay, to me, I feel like that's always the most challenging part of the human face. Okay, so let's keep going now and talking about the bottom part of the face. Okay, and when we look at the bottom part of the face, it's actually broken up into 3 separate parts. So if I go from my eyelid or my eye line here, okay, I'm going to break it up into 3 parts. So here's kind of 1, here's 2. Okay, and if you want to measure it, you can. You could take your pencil and pinch it, and then slide up, and then slide up. I am going to have my nose be down just a little bit farther. Again, the nose can be a tiny bit lower depending on the nose length. So for me, okay, I made my nose just a little bit lower than that third. Okay. We're also going to do the same thing at the top. So we're going to break the top half of the face into thirds as well. So I'm going to have 1/3 there and 1/3 there. And I could check it with my pencil if I wanted to. It's kind of a quick, easy measurement. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, but let's go through and start labeling these. We can use our little handy worksheet to do that. Okay, so this first tick mark is the bottom of the bottom lip. Okay, so I'm going to just draw kind of a line out here. I'm going to write down bottom of the bottom lip. Okay. This next line is the bottom of the nose. Okay, so I'm going to write that out here. Okay. Going up to my line above the eyes, okay, that's going to represent my eyebrow line. Okay. And then the top one is actually your hairline. So I always kind of giggle when I see students' artwork and the hairline is like starting at the top of the head. Okay. That means that suddenly you have no hair starting right here. You have hair that starts like right here, kind of almost like the genie off of Aladdin, right? He's got that little top knot. Okay. That would be what you're trying to say if you start drawing hair up here instead, right? So let's focus on the bottom half of the face first. So let's talk about the nose next. Okay, and for our nose, I want you guys just to watch first. There's many ways that you can draw a nose, but the very basic way to draw it is I almost think about it like a set of bull horns. Okay, so we're going to make a little U, and then all we're going to do is we're going to curve that little U out and up to make kind of these little bull horns. Okay. Now let's talk about how wide the nose is. So if I were to take my pencil and I were to actually just line it up with my face here, or the side of my nose, you'll notice that it lines up directly with my tear duct. So that's how wide your nose is. It comes down from your tear duct. So I'm going to just draw a couple little dashed lines here lightly to help give me a guide on where the edges of my nose should be. Okay, so try not to make your bull horns now too wide. You can go ahead and draw those. And then the sides of our nose, we're actually just going to turn them into like little squished parentheses. So you can see my example here. It's not quite 100% a parenthesis. It's kind of squished a little bit on the bottom. So you just kind of start up at the top and you're going to squish it down around. Okay, but these two lines do not connect. Okay, do not connect to the bottom of the parenthesis to the bullhorn. Okay, that just stays separate. Okay, kind of just tuck it in. If you gotta kind of realign your bullhorn there a little bit, you can. Okay, but that gives us the impression of the tip of the nose, okay, and the edges of the nose. Okay, we're not gonna add necessarily any shading in for the nostrils, but we could eventually do that if we were ready to do shading. Okay, now let's talk about the lips. Okay, for our lips, again, if we use our pencil to kind of just look at measurements. So if I put my pencil in line with the side of my mouth and it goes straight up, hey, it's gonna run right into the pupil of my eye. So I can go directly down from my pupil, again, just draw kind of these very light dashed lines. Okay. That's gonna represent the sides of my mouth. Okay, that's how far out my mouth goes. Again, this is generality. Some of you have like wider lips, some of you have smaller lips, okay? So this is the bottom of the bottom lip, okay? And for me, in this example, okay, I made the lips a little bit thicker. Okay? The only difference here between making a thin or thick lip is how far apart we're gonna put our U's here, okay? So, for example, okay, if I wanted to, for some of you, you have a smaller chin. If I wanted to move this line down just a little bit, I could. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just a bottom long U, okay, to represent the bottom part of the lip. I'm going to scoot up just a little bit. You decide how big you want to make your bottom lip, and I'm going to make a little U right there. And then I'm going to do my top lip. I'm going to keep my top lip kind of skinny, so I'm not going to go as far. Again, if you have big top lips, okay, you could make that space bigger. Okay, so I've got 3 U's. I'm going to start with my center line of my mouth. Okay, and to do my center line of my mouth, you could make it super curvy, okay, something like that. Or if you have a flatter lip, okay, you could make it a little less curvy. But you should have a little bit of a curve. Okay, and then if you want them to look like they're smiling, okay, curve that outer corner up instead of down. Okay. You're going to do the same thing on the left. Okay. And curve the corner of the mouth up and at the very end to make it look like it's smiling. Okay. Okay. Let's go to the top part of the lip. It's the same process, except now we're going to curve down and into the corner of the mouth. Okay. Couple things that I see students do. They sometimes make, I call them almost like boat lips. They kind of do one of these. Okay. That means that you probably got punched in the face a little bit because it's swelling a little bit on the sides of the mouth, right? It kind of tucks in and down instead of up and out. Okay, so think about almost coming up like a hill into that curving, I guess I think of it like a squished M. If I turn it sideways, it should almost look like a bow and arrow. Okay. Okay, now when we do the bottom part of the lip, okay, with this example, there's a couple things that I see. Okay, we want to actually kind of tuck it up and into the corner of the mouth. Okay, but what I'll see some students do sometimes is they'll make boat lips. Okay, so they kind of make it almost like a canoe, something like that. Again, that means that you've got a really wide like bottom lip. Almost everyone's lip kind of tucks in, okay, more so on the right-hand side here than on the left. So be careful with that. If you have to pull from the corner of the mouth down to the middle, you can do that too, but I've noticed for some students it's more accurate if they go from the bottom and curve up into the corner of the mouth. Okay, that's our lips. So now we're going to move to the top part of the head. And we're going to talk about some eyebrows. Okay, we're going to give our eyebrows, okay, or our person, eyebrows that are actually realistic and not painted on, okay? So what that means is, out there's a trend to essentially just, add makeup to our eyebrows and make them super thick, something like this, and then we could shade it in, right? I also see students sometimes do like one of these, okay? That's cartoon eyebrows, okay? To make realistic eyebrows, I want you guys to first watch, okay? And then you can do it. Your eyebrows, if you need to give yourself a guideline, generally start right kind of above your tear duct, and they go out past your, the outside of your eye. Okay? Again, everyone's is a little bit different. Sometimes they're cut off a little bit short. Sometimes they're out a little bit wider. Okay? But for our generality, that's our arch that we're going to use. Okay? And then here's kind of what's unique. If you look at your partner's eyebrows, right, the hair actually starts by going straight up or inward before it actually curves going outward. So when I do this, I'm going to start by flicking up and in, okay? And then I'm going to start flicking outwards up towards this like brow bone, okay? And then after I get to the brow bone, which is right about here, then I'm going to start changing the direction of the hair to go out and away from the face, okay? So to repeat that one more time before you start, I'm starting by flicking almost inward and up, okay? And then I'm kind of arching it over at an angle towards the brow bone. And then as soon as I get to the brow bone, I'm going to start changing the angle to go down and away from the face. Okay, so go ahead and do this. You can give thick eyebrows, you can give skinny eyebrows. Okay, I'm going to give mine just a little bit thicker here. So adding multiple layers thickens them up. Okay, and then I'm going to go through, I'm not going to make mine as curvy. This person's got really curvy eyebrows. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, so the left-hand side. So I'm going to kind of make my arch just so I kind of know where I'm going. Start by flicking inwards and then up. Add an angle towards the brow bone and down away from the face. Okay. Try and kind of get them even. I realize this is your first time drawing them. It might be a little challenging, but try and get them as even as you possibly can. Okay, now we're going to move on to talking about ears before we talk about hair. So let's talk about our ears. Okay, if we take our fingers, okay, and we just line them up with the corners of our eyes, and we draw like a line straight back, you'll notice that boom, it's probably going to hit right where your top of your ears connect to your head. Okay, and then your ears actually go up, and then they go down, okay, and then they connect back to your head, right? Okay, and then you'll notice if you draw a line straight in, it should go right to the base of your nose. So your ear is about the size from the edge of your eye, okay, to the base of your nose. So you can go ahead and draw these little tick marks in. They're going to help us. Okay. And as we just talked about, we're going to start by going up first. And I think it'll help you guys if you maybe watch first and then do this. So I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to go out, okay? And then I'm going to kind of curve it down. It depends on if you have attached or detached earlobes. So if I had more like attached earlobes, I would just kind of scoot in here. Okay? If I have more like detached earlobes, I would go down a little bit and then back up into that tick mark, okay? So why don't you guys start by drawing your first little C, your backward C. Okay, I'm going to do it on the other side. Okay, I'm just going to do the same process, going up a little bit, making kind of a wide C. Okay, then kind of curving back in. Okay, and everyone's got different ears. Sometimes they hang out off the side of our head. Sometimes they're a little bit smaller and they're close in. Okay, but we're going to give our person just kind of some average ears. Okay, but then you'll feel on your ear, and you have this little piece of cartilage at the top. Okay, that little piece of cartilage is the thing that we're going to draw next. You'll notice it goes all the way around the back of the ear, and then it kind of disappears. And then at the bottom of the ear, it kind of shows up again as our earlobe. Okay, so what's happening there, okay, if you guys want to watch first again, I'm going to kind of get rid of this tick mark so it's easier to see. We have this attached piece of skin here, okay, and then it's going to kind of just fade away and disappear. Okay, that line is. But then it's going to show back up again. You guys have this kind of little knob here, okay, in the middle of your ear. So I'm going to draw that first. That's kind of this little nub here. Okay, and then we have our earlobe, okay, which is in the base. And then we're also going to kind of just get that line to disappear and connect near the back. Okay, so that's our ear. Okay, and everyone has different shaped ears. Just giving you a basic. Okay, let's do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to get rid of this little tick mark. That'll make it a little easier. This little piece of cartilage, it's going to kind of go up and it's going to get skinny and kind of disappear. And I have that little nub that's kind of in the middle of the ear. It scoots down into the earlobe, and then it kind of scoots back to the back of the ear and disappears. Okay. Then our last little piece of the ear that we're going to add is going to be that little chunk in there that's kind of the extra cartilage. It tucks into the inside of our ear. Okay? And how I think of this is kind of an upside down hockey stick. So if you need to watch first, then you can draw it. So when I think of an upside down hockey stick, it kind of connects here and then it goes down, and we're just going to kind of let it fade out. So it's coming around, and then we're just going to kind of let it fade out. So it kind of reminds me of an upside down hockey stick. Okay? That's going to represent that little piece of cartilage that's inside the top part of the ear. Okay? And then one more time on the left side. So I'm just kind of drawing that kind of goofy looking hockey stick. Okay. And then down and around. Okay. Okay. Then we're going to talk a little bit about hair before we finish up for the day. Okay, because I do want you guys to practice adding a little bit of hair. I think the best thing to do for you guys is actually to send you to YouTube, because each one of you is going to try and do a different style of hair, and there's just so many options out there. For me, I have to spend like a whole week teaching you about hair, okay? But I do want to give you just a couple ideas and suggestions before I send you to maybe YouTube to check some things out. So this is another example, okay? What I was doing here, okay, this is using the range of pencils that I shared with you at the beginning of the video. We used a 6B, a 4H, and a HB pencil to create this value. And then we actually used our eraser to pull out the highlights. Okay, so it looks a lot like spaghetti when you start. Okay, this one on this side, we actually took our 6B and we set it off on the side of the pencil, so you can see my grip here. Okay, and then you just start using it almost like you would a piece of chalk to kind of create kind of more of that afro style hair or that textured coarse kind of hair. Okay, so another example that I have for you, okay, this would be maybe just for shorter hair. It's very similar, okay, to what we did here, okay, but notice, like, again, it just depends on the direction of your hair. Really look at your partner's hair or look at your own, okay, and you can see the direction that it flows. Generally for girls, we kind of have a part somewhere, right? And then it comes off of that part. Not always, but just kind of generally. For boys, a lot of you have like a spot where everything comes from, okay? So again, that's not always the case. Some of you obviously have parts. Some of you have little spots that it comes from. Some of you don't, okay? So just these are thoughts. So this shows you guys, this is kind of the beginning where it starts. And then this is how you finish it out to make it look like a finished product piece of hair. Okay. The last few that I'll share with you, okay, if you really want to get stylized with it, you can start developing the different sections of hair, and then you just draw the lines within those sections. Okay. You don't have to do anything as complicated as this. Okay, it's just an idea for you. Okay. Again, for girls, okay, think about that hair that starts at the part, generally goes up first, and then out and down and around. Okay. If you're doing something kind of like this, again, it might go up and then out and around the edge of the face. Okay. So this is my thought for you. I'm going to send you guys a little bit to go out to YouTube. You're going to discover what kind of hair you're going to draw. Okay. I'm going to work on a little bit of hair myself up here, but you guys can start opening up your Chromebooks, looking on YouTube, seeing what you can find in order to learn a little bit about hair. Okay. Hair is required for this. Okay. This project I am going to collect tomorrow, so it is due tomorrow. I want to see that you have something on there for your hair, and it should be complete. Okay.